Hello there, I'm here to do a presentation on flying cars and why you shouldn't buy one. The idea of flying cars have been quite prominent throughout media, and there have been many people around the world who's trying to make it happen currently. As a kid, I always imagined how cool it would be if I would be able to ride in one. But how impossible is that really? What are the chances that I could buy a flying car today and it will work like how it would in the movies? What are the engineering behind these vehicles and what are the different ways that people are trying to build them? So let's start with the experiment. Imagine you're driving home from work and there's a road that's full of traffic. If you have a flying car, this shouldn't be a problem at all. You could just fly in the air and pass all the traffic. However, thinking about it, in the air, it's so much more efficient for the car because there's less friction from the air particles compared to being on the road where you're touching the ground. So just being in the air makes it so much more efficient for the car to drive. So there's no point in the car part of the flying car because it's always better to go in the air, to be in the air than be on the road. So a lot of people realize this and they call these vehicles vertical takeoff and landing vehicles instead. Just because realistically, there's no point to be on the road except for just looking cool. These vehicles, VTOLs or vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, as the name implies, are the most important aspect of the flying cars. That being said, technically humanity has made a few well-known inventions that are classified under this category, this being the helicopter and the rocket ship. If you think about it, these two things don't quite fit the criteria for a flying car because they aren't fit for personal use. They're both way too loud and the fueling options just aren't practical. I mean, imagine getting rocket fuel at a gas station. That would burn a hole through your wallet faster than the rocket ship can. So the most important parts of the VTOL that are needed for city use is the vertical takeoff and landing because that's integral to what it actually is, the volume level so it doesn't disturb the public, the speed I can go, and the range just because you don't want like a car that is unable to get anywhere or go too far. You want to know the power system because depending on the power system, like the power usage, you don't want to use jet fuel. And you also want to know how many passengers it can hold. So the weight capacity, because having the ability to fly is cool and all, but if I can't carry anything, it's not practical either. Some of the major problems that these manufacturers are facing fall into these three categories, that being the safety issues, the commercial issues, and the ethical issues. For the safety issues, the passengers need to be safe while adjusting for weather conditions while not being able to crash into anything. And if they do crash, you need like search and rescue, stuff like that. For the commercial issues, a lot of this stuff isn't actually made, so the company needs to make them and produce them and invent these technologies that just currently do not exist. And for the ethical issues, there's a lot of ethical concerns that like if I fly my flying car over someone's property, I could like that is a form of spying, so that's an invasion of human privacy. And so environmental pollution is also like noise pollution, I guess, to the public. There are two realistic options for power systems for the VTOLs, that being electric and hydrocarbons. For electric, it's better for emissions, it's better for noise, it's better for weight, it's more energy efficient, there's less moving parts, it's just better for the environment in general. However, for hydrocarbons, it gives the flying car or the VTOL more thrust. It gives it more power that it needs to go further, it needs to fly faster, and it is way faster at charging because with how many people already complain about Tesla's charging speed, try to get them to use a car that depletes 10 times faster and requires way longer to recharge because the batteries are bigger. So what you see in front of you is something called the Aleph car. This car has been the news in the past few years because it still looked like a functional car while being a capable VTOL. This seems to work for it because the pre-orders for this car is $300,000 and there has been 2,800 pre-orders as of March 2024, which there should be around 3,000 now because it's 2025. However, that is $850 million of pre-orders, and they haven't released much information about this car at all, but they have gone on record to say there's around 110 miles of um, 110 miles of range and it'll function like a normal car. However, if you look under the hood for 1 second, these don't look quite that perfect. So this is the video that the company has provided, and if you watch the video, the car doesn't look like a car at all. The audio is muted because it's probably copyrighted music. If you look here, the car is very wobbly to say the least. And from um, flying over this car, you can see that the car is capable of takeoff. The car is more like a drone, and it's not. You don't want to buy a car that's like this, basically. Like they provide multiple videos of the car flying, quote unquote, but the flying that they're producing is very unstable, and it's not trustworthy if you want like an actual car. Along with that, in the video, the car is actually very loud, almost as loud as a helicopter, and and the car is unable to probably control itself. I would not trust this car in like any weather conditions. I would not trust this car for any purposes. I'm not even sure it can hold multiple passengers or like the weight capacity of this car. So the A-lift vehicle is practically a joke with how bad it currently is. However, there are some better options currently in the market or currently that's being developed, because this A-lift vehicle is supposed to come out late 2026, and I don't think in the current time it could do anything better than how it is currently. A more realistic option would be something like the City Hawk eVTOL from Urban Aeronautics. It might look weird for a flying car, but this vehicle is more like an air taxi. It functions like a helicopter, but it would hold multiple passengers, and it has 270 kilometers per hour of max speed, and depending on how many people it holds, 150 to 360 miles of range. And this photo is from their website, is in production until 2026. However, there's other designs from them that's made for ambulances, which function similar to this, but it would be for emergencies. It's only for like 2 people and like one for the passenger. It would be for emergency takeoff and landings, right? So for if anyone is in need of emergency takeoff. The next VTOL I want to talk about is one of the quietest VTOLs because of their hydrogen-powered engines, and it's called the Stellar Cojet. Uh, it's quite fast for a plane, or I guess a jet. But the idea is that rather than a normal VTOL, it's more like a jet. So it's not practical for normal purposes. However, the fact that it has is one of the quietest makes it have designs that could be incorporated by other VTOLs. However, this plane or this VTOL is $6 million and it holds 3 passengers, so it's definitely more of a private jet rather than like a flying car. So, for some information about the legality of these flying vehicles, um, the A-left vehicles or like the City Hawk would theoretically only be allowed from 0 to 500 is the usual range that they'll be flying through. At most, they're allowed 2,000 meters, and everything above that is considered like jet category or like the stellar jet category, where it would not be allowed up there without like the classifications of a jet. Um, However, mostly it's from 0 to 500. Everything above 500 though is mostly used by helicopters or other VTOLs like that. There's some regulations of like how. Oh fuck. So yeah, in conclusion, most VTOLs that are currently in place needs more work. Companies like Aleph or like the City Hawk might seem reasonable, but like if you look under the hood, there's always like some problems or like um, more work, a lot more work needs to be done. I'll probably give it 10 to 15 years before like air taxis like the City Hawk, because they're more reasonable than like personal use vehicles. So probably those flying cars would need to take a lot more time beyond them, but they need the rules and regulations to also catch up. There is an article from the Congressional Research Service that talks about more of the legality of flying cars and just stuff like that. And they talked about how NASA was supposed to create an unmanned air traffic control system, but it seems to be discontinued. And another system will need to be put in place. Along with that, it states that air taxis or other personal VTOLs would be would either fly in any way the operator wishes or have to follow certain rules, like certain routes, like on the ground. Like if there's like roads, and it's uncertain which one uh, of the two it would be. There's also questions about like is flying over personal property considered trespassing, and like do you own the airspace above you, stuff like that. And along with that, flying directly over people is not allowed. So that means that either you have to follow the same roads or you have to go pretty high, around 200 meters off the ground, or pretty high off the ground, just to make sure that like there's no laws about that. Here are my sources that I used, and thanks for SlidesGo for the template.